Tonight, the mother of schoolgirl Caroline Glachan, found dead on the banks of the River Leven 27 years ago, gives evidence on the first day of a trial into her murder. 2 men and a woman stand accused.
Also making the headlines, plans for a multi-million-pound revamp of the Clutha, a decade after 10 people died when a police helicopter crashed into the busy bar.
Just looking at this in total disbelief, but it felt like the walls were crying. You know, it was just a horrible, horrible experience.
A daughter who lost her mother to lung cancer backs calls for a targeted national screening programme in Scotland.
And in sport, VAR is thrust into the spotlight again after Rangers' penalty award against Aberdeen.
I'm Kellyanne Woodland in Edinburgh.
And I'm John Mackay in Glasgow. This is the STV News at 6.
Good evening. The mother of murdered schoolgirl Caroline Glachan has told a jury her daughter was infatuated with one of her alleged killers. Margaret McKeach said she confronted Caroline's older boyfriend about his treatment of the 14-year-old at the time after hearing he had lifted his hands to her and slapped her.
Mrs McKeach was the first witness to be called in the trial of 2 men and a woman who deny murdering Caroline in West Dunbartonshire on the 25th of August 1996. Caitlin Hutchison reports.
The jury was shown police footage of the moment divers removed 14-year-old Caroline Glachan's body from shallow water 27 years ago. On the banks of the River Leven on that day in August 1996, there were a pair of white trainers in the long grass. Caroline's mother became emotional when she told the court how she later had to identify her daughter's body. During her evidence, Margaret McKeach said in the time before the teenager's death, she had become concerned about a change in her lifestyle, which she said involved going to see one of the accused, Robbie O'Brien, in Renton. The jury heard Margaret McKeach didn't approve of her daughter's relationship with O'Brien, who was around 4 years older than her. Mrs McKeach told the court that her daughter was infatuated with him and said she once confronted O'Brien about lifting his hand to Caroline, telling him to stay away from her. During cross-examination by the defence, Mrs McKeach said she first felt upset and angry when her daughter failed to come home on the night of the 24th of August, but she said she believed her daughter was probably frightened to come and face her after she had already called the police on at least 2 occasions in the past and reported her missing. The court also heard there was a prevalent culture of young people taking heroin in Renton in 1996. Mrs McKeach confirmed Caroline had told her she had tried the drug once and didn't like it, but she was concerned after her own bank card and some of her jewellery went missing. Prosecutors alleged the trio on trial today arranged to meet the schoolgirl at a bridge near the towpath beside the River Leven. It's then alleged they assaulted her and threw bricks or similar instruments at her, inflicting blunt force trauma to her head and body, causing her to fall or pushing her into the water. All 3 of the accused, Robert O'Brien, Andrew Kelly and Donna Marie Brand, all of whom would have been teenagers at the time of Caroline's death, deny all the charges they face and claim they were elsewhere at the time she was allegedly murdered. The trial is expected to last up to 15 days. Caitlin Hutchison, STV News at the High Court in Glasgow.
The owner of the Clutha Bar says he hopes plans for a multi-million-pound revamp of the site will ensure its name remains in the heart of Glasgow forever. Speaking ahead of the 10th anniversary of the tragedy, Alan Crossan has revealed his vision to knock down the pub and replace it with a complex housing a music, arts and drama hub, as well as apartments.
The space will also include a permanent memorial to the 10 people killed when a police helicopter crashed through the roof of the busy bar. Alan Crossan has been speaking to our chief reporter, Sharon Frew.
10 years, you know, when you say 10 years, it's a long time, but it just seems like you can look back and touch it, you know, it's still very vivid.
It was late on Friday night and the owner of the Clutha was at home when his bar manager called to tell him what had happened. Minutes later, Alan Crossan was standing, watching the emergency response from the opposite side of the River Clyde.
And I could still see that scene, looking at it, the blue lights reflecting on the river and just silence.
This Wednesday marks 10 years since the police helicopter fell from the sky and smashed through the roof of the busy pub. The bar had been packed with people watching a live band. 7 customers, the pilots and the 2 crew on board the helicopter died. Many more were injured. In the decades since the tragedy, the Clutha Trust was formed. The charity has raised hundreds of thousands of pounds for local causes. Now it has a new dream.
When I first came in at the pub the week after the accident, there was the hole in the roof and the water's running down the wall. Half of it's destroyed. We're just looking at this in total disbelief. But it felt like the walls were crying. You know, it was just that horrible, horrible experience. So what we're trying to do is come out of that and make this new vision, dreams, what we have, you know, to make it special.
This is what the new Clutha could look like, a multi-storey complex with a bar and community theatre, alongside training facilities for young people interested in learning music, art and drama. Above that, 144 serviced apartments.
The Clutha's through there, it's not opened, it's never been opened since the accident. This is temporary. And it was a temporary agreement with the council that would do that. And we always said it was temporary. What I wanted to do was always make sure that there's a Clutha here, and this is the only way I can do that. People need to trust me in how I design that, but I'll do it in such a way that I know this will be what the Clutha is, and it will be there forever. It's a lot of money, it's in excess of 20 million, you know, but there are investors out there.
At the back of the new development, 10 guitars will be sealed into a wall to create a lasting memorial to the 10 victims. Alan is in close contact with many relatives, and he says he has their support.
But we've got plans for when it closes. We're looking at putting a boat on the Clyde, which will be, the Clutha was a boat anyway, the Clutha means the Clyde.
Music remains at the heart of the Clutha. On Wednesday evening, this stage will be filled with a choir. Families, survivors and emergency workers have been invited to join staff and customers to remember the events of a decade ago.
After the accident, we were kind of smothered with love and kindness from people in Glasgow, you know, and they helped us a lot. And what we're trying to do now is just redirect that to people who need that. As I said at the time, it was the people that made this pub, not the pub, you know, and it didn't matter about the bricks and mortar, and it was the people that made it. That will always be the case. That's what makes the Clutha special.
Sharon Frew, STV News, Glasgow.
Social care leaders are warning of a disastrous shock to the sector if plans to curb legal migration go ahead. The UK Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is drawing up plans to ban social care staff from bringing over family members and introduce an overall cap on care visa numbers.
It comes as new figures show net migration to the UK reached a record high last year. Scottish Care say jobs have to be paid better and made more appealing here to reduce the reliance on overseas staff. Here's our political reporter, Laura Alderman.
Vanny has worked at this care home in Ballingery for more than 4 years now. Originally from India, her visa allowed her to bring her husband and children over too, and they've settled into the community. But now that could be set to change. In a bid to limit immigration, proposals are in the pipeline from the UK government to prevent overseas care workers like Fanny from bringing family members over, as well as a potential cap on the number of care visas issued.
I think that is going to make a huge difference here because Australia now they have so much vacancies, and people from here like me, immigrant, they are all going away from here. I cannot imagine without my family.
And care providers can't imagine being without their overseas staff after struggling to recruit domestically.
I think it's yet another indication that these people don't understand the sector they're dealing with. The day they arrive here, they're working within 2 or 3 days, paying tax within 2 or 3 days and adding to the community. And we're all getting older all the time. You know, 1 in 5 or 6 is going to require full-time care. This is a real issue that we need to solve.
Recruiting and retaining staff has been a long-standing challenge for the sector, even before the pandemic. But now more than 3/4 of all adult care homes have vacancies. That's the highest figure since records began. The Scottish Government is increasing pay for adult social care workers to £12 an hour from April. But industry leaders say that's simply too little and far too late.
The rumours coming from Westminster are singularly unhelpful. Even if they don't come out to be true to the fullest extent, they are damaging the prospects of women and men thinking about coming to Scotland.
The Prime Minister could also increase the salary threshold for migrants to £40,000. An average carer's salary doesn't come close to this.
Well, I'm very clear that the levels of net migration are too high. They need to come down to more sustainable levels. It's encouraging that the Office for National Statistics last week did say that the numbers are already slowing, but we need to do more.
Oh, there you go, pal. 808.
Rishi Sunak's party will be hoping these plans give them a stronger hand going into the next general election. But there's a warning: the only losers of this game could be those who rely on care. Laura Alderman, STV News, Ballingarry.
For more on the debate around immigration, let's go to our Westminster correspondent, Paris Goutsianis. And Paris, the UK government is under pressure from all sides.
That's right. Today, the Home Secretary faced MPs for the first time since those net migration statistics were confirmed, a record last year of 745,000 people. To be clear, the vast majority are coming to the UK to work, study and claim asylum through established routes, not crossing the Channel. But it's fueling calls from Tory MPs for a crackdown and a revival of the Rwanda deportation plan ruled unlawful by the Supreme Court.
Immigration to the UK is skyrocketing. Is it time to realise that there's well-intentioned international treaties and conventions agreed 70 years ago are no longer fit for purpose?
There's still no sign of anything on their failed Rwanda plan because he knows it won't work. Nothing on the trebling of net migration to tackle the skills gaps that are driving work visas. They've been in power for 13 years and all we've got is chaos and briefing wars.
There is a vacuum, a gaping vacuum where the Labour Party's policy on migration, whether it be legal or illegal, stats. And unless and until they come up with something approaching a policy, I will continue to do what we know to be right.
Now, we didn't hear much new detail today on how the government intends to bring down net migration, but we do know that they're considering measures which would seriously restrict the ability of care providers to recruit overseas. The SNP says that would be disastrous for the sector and the economy as a whole.
We need people to come and work in those sectors that we are seeing struggling to get staff at the moment. And those are, health and care, as we've discussed, also hospitality, also in the farming sector as well. They need people to come in and feel welcome and to stay. And the Westminster obsession with driving down those numbers doesn't help that at all.
Backbench Tories will be heaping the pressure on ministers on this issue. As long as they do, care providers will be looking on nervously for what comes next.
Paris at Westminster, thank you. A survivor of rape has told STV News she's still here today because of the support she received from a charity. But now, Rape Crisis Scotland is warning its services could be decimated by funding cuts. Money to reduce waiting lists for help is due to run out in March, and 28 jobs could be lost.
The Scottish Government says it's investing record levels of funding to support frontline services aimed at preventing violence against women and girls, with £19 million provided to support more than 100 different projects. Vanessa Kennedy reports.
This survivor of rape who wants to remain anonymous says the ordeal she went through left her feeling so isolated. She felt she had to put on a brave face to her friends and family.
It's quite difficult to navigate emotions after that's happened to you. In a way, you can present as quite emotionless because it is so difficult trying to navigate how you should feel after that happens. I found in myself that when I was alone, I'd be breaking down, I'd be crying, I'd be quite upset, but when I was with other people, I was putting a face on it.
She told STV News that the help she received from rape crisis support workers was life-saving.
I could see in the media and people I knew that these cases don't go anywhere, nothing happens to them, that guy will end up living the rest of his life totally free, and I'm left with this guilt and this awful, awful feeling. So to have that kind of validation and support will literally change my life and is the reason I'm still here today.
but looming cuts mean there are now fears for those services. In 2021, the Scottish Government granted temporary funds to tackle waiting lists across Scotland. That's due to expire in March next year, meaning 28 jobs are at risk.
Somebody who's been raped or sexually assaulted has already been let down. They've been devastated already, and to be let down again, to be taking the step to ask for support and not to be there is just horrendous.
What this means is that our services are really going to be decimated across the country, that this is hundreds of fewer appointments we're going to be able to offer survivors across the whole of Scotland. And really we're calling on the government to continue this funding and to give some priority to survivors of sexual crime. Support after rape shouldn't be a postcode lottery, and it definitely shouldn't be a luxury.
For now, the charity faces an anxious wait to determine what the future for its services will hold. Vanessa Kennedy, STV News.
To other stories, and a number of arrests have been made in connection with what police described as large-scale disorder in East Ayrshire at the weekend. Several incidents were reported in Auchinleck, with an officer requiring hospital treatment after being hit by a brick.
And Unison is calling off strike action in schools after members voted to accept a local government pay deal. Janitors, cleaners and office staff have closed schools across the country this year. Council leaders have welcomed the agreement. Now, a daughter who lost her mother to lung cancer is backing calls from a charity for a targeted national screening programme in Scotland. Kelsey Mackay's mother, Christine Livingston, died at the age of 52.
Cancer Research UK believes thousands of deaths could be avoided if the disease was caught earlier. The Scottish Government says it's looking at introducing a screening programme here. Our political correspondent, Ewan Petrie, reports.
We were best friends, so we'd go on holiday every year together. She was just one of those really strong, independent women that just got up and got on with it.
Kelsey's mother, Christine, was diagnosed with lung cancer in July 2012. Treatment appeared to go well. But the following May, a scan revealed it had spread to her brain, and she was given 6 months to live.
Within 2 or 3 days, she went from being able to walk around and do things for herself to she couldn't even lift a fork to feed herself. We had to cut up her dinner for her, we had to carry her up and down the stairs to the toilet, we had to help her get dressed, we had to bath her. She went downhill very quickly because she just gave up.
Within 2 months, Christine had died in hospital. Kelsey now backs calls for screening for those most at risk.
If the screening can save even just one more person's life, and it saves anyone else having to go through what I've been through, or experiencing what my mum experienced, then that 5-10 minute test is totally worth it.
Lung cancer is the most common cancer in Scotland, with more than 5,000 new cases diagnosed every year. Cancer Research UK estimates at least 2,300 lives could be saved over the next decade, as targeted screening could see 4,000 more patients diagnosed at an early stage.
We've seen survival rates for cancer double over the last 50 years, but the progress in lung cancer hasn't been as great, which is one of the reasons why we're calling for a national screening programme so that we diagnose people earlier, when more treatments would be available and work for them, and more lives could be saved.
An advisory group is now looking at how that programme could be introduced.
We are also piloting in 4 of our health boards areas the healthy lung test, which we know for individuals who may be at risk of developing lung problems, that can be a useful way to try to help to identify early problems with someone's lungs.
Results from the pilots will be assessed before ministers look at extending it next summer. Ewan Petrie, STV News.
The stories in the West, and a man has died after being found seriously injured outside a primary school in Greenock last night. The 35-year-old was taken to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital following the incident on Drumfrochel Road, but he died a few hours later. Pupils at St Patrick's Primary were asked to attend other schools nearby. A man has been arrested and charged after a woman was raped near Central Station in Glasgow. Police say the incident happened early yesterday morning on Mitchell Street. A 32-year-old man is due to appear at Glasgow Sheriff Court tomorrow. People have been warned not to approach a hiker who went missing more than a year ago as police continue to search for him. James Clacher from Bells Hill in North Lanarkshire was last seen in Airdrie in May last year. His car was found at Loch Long. A woman whose life was disrupted by a rare heart condition says Scotland's new specialised clinic has been a game changer. Jackie Turnbull suffered a spontaneous coronary artery dissection last year, a rare type of heart attack which mostly affects women. Patients previously had to travel to England, but they're now being seen at a new pilot clinic at Forth Valley Royal Hospital. Brandon Cook reports.
Just days after completing her latest half-marathon, Jackie Turnbull suffered a spontaneous coronary artery dissection. The rare heart condition stopped the keen runner in her tracks. She was off work for around 5 months.
The symptoms are very alike having a heart attack as well. However, it's not your usual candidate, is what's been explained to myself, in terms of I'm not overweight, I've not got high cholesterol, I'm not diabetic. There was lots of questions, how long will I live as well, thinking, wow, is this going to be something that's going to affect me for the rest of my life?
The condition, known as SCAD, effectively tore part of the wall of the artery on Jackie's heart. Its rarity and similarity to heart attacks means patients often go without correct treatments. But now, a specialist clinic at Forth Valley Royal Hospital is trying to change that.
So far, every patient we've had has responded extremely positively to being able to see a specialist in their own country and the decreasing the amount of travel that they've had to do, but also being able to see somebody sooner as well, because with the number of people who now have a SCAD, there's around 50 a year in Scotland, we really needed to bring something local so that they could be seen.
Consultant cardiologist Anne Scott has worked on the pilot programme since it began in September. She says the clinic is about tailoring treatments to suit each patient.
They need slightly different treatment from patients who have heart attacks due to more common roughening of the heart arteries. So we alter the medication slightly, we alter some of the advice around exercise and rehabilitation. And also, because this condition predominantly affects women, there are often questions around pregnancy or around HRT that are very important for those women moving forwards, and we try to address all of those in the clinic here.
Around 50 Scots are known to suffer SCADs each year. Researchers say the real number is likely higher, but there's signs this trial will help improve diagnosis and get patients like Jackie back up to speed sooner. Brandon Cook, STV News.
Rahman is here with the sport and a lot to talk about from over the weekend.
There is indeed, John. Thanks very much. Good evening to you all. James Tavernier says the Rangers players are frustrated after their draw against Aberdeen at Pittodrie and admits they must make a faster start against Aris Limassol in the Europa League on Thursday night. After going a goal behind, the Ibrox side created several chances but only secured a point thanks to a penalty from their skipper in the 90th minute. Ronnie Charters reports.
Philippe Clement was minutes away from tasting defeat for the first time as Rangers manager. That was until this. A shot pull on Connor Goldson, VAR instructing referee Nick Walsh to have a second look, and as a result, penalty to Rangers. James Tavernier stepped up to rescue a point for Rangers, and for the Ibrox boss, it was the right call.
Clearly it's a penalty if you pull a shirt like that. You see clearly the shirt comes like this. It's a penalty. You cannot use your hands in that way. I get this question a few weeks ago, what my opinion was about VAR. And I'm a fan because it makes the game more honest.
But for Aberdeen manager Barry Robson, a differing view.
Stefan got blocked. I think we all see that. So obviously VAR have just no bothered looking at the block and have just looked at the pull of the shirt, and we're in trouble, aren't we? If this is the way it's going to go, we're in trouble. It doesn't look great. It just doesn't look great. For me, it just doesn't look good. Another VAR decision going for Rangers' way in 90th minute again. This doesn't look good for us. It just, I don't know. I'm just frustrated.
Rangers skipper James Tavernier admits Bojan Majowski's early strike is a reminder they must defend better in matches as they get set for their Europa League clash with Limassol on Thursday night.
It's a massive month and a half coming up. We're all relishing the games, and we know how big Thursday night is, and we've got to take full advantage of playing at Ibrox and try and get the 3 points on the board to put us in a good position. But yeah, the main thing is that I'm looking at all the lads at training, and we're all really pushing each other.
Ronnie Charters, STV News.
Brendan Rodgers says his Celtic players can't dwell on their draw against Motherwell as they prepare to face Lazio in the Champions League tomorrow night. David Turnbull put the champions ahead from the penalty spot in the 86th minute. Then, in the 90th minute, substitute Jonathan Obika earned a point for the Steelmen. Stephen Naismith and Nick Montgomery praised their team's performances after Hearts and Hibs secured victories at the weekend. The Tynecastle side made it 3 league wins in a row after defeating St Johnstone 1-0, and Hibs moved up to 5th after their 2-1 win over Dundee at Dens Park. Now, after an impressive start to the league campaign, St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson is targeting a run in the Scottish Cup. The Buddies, who maintained 3rd spot in the Premiership after their 1-0 win over Livingston on Saturday, have been drawn against Queen of the South at home in the 4th round of the Cup.
That's what you look for. It's unlikely we're going to win the league. So, cup competitions for clubs of our size are a huge carrot for us. So we'll we approach that game as we always do, very professionally. Queen of the South have knocked out Dundee United, a big side, so there's certainly no pushover. We're happy we've got a home draw. That's the big thing in any cup competition. If you can get a home draw, we've got a fantastic record there.
To rugby, and after Glasgow Warriors moved above Leinster at the top of the United Rugby Championship, attack coach Nigel Carolan has fired a warning to the rest of the league. He says the best is yet to come from the Scots inside. The Warriors came back from 14-0 down to defeat Ulster 33-20 on Saturday, securing the 3rd successive bonus point win. They are away to champions Munster on Friday night.
We don't sit in our meetings saying how great we are. We just look at opportunities missed and how we can do better and how we can score more tries and how we can stop more tries. And and it's that ambition just to constantly get better is where we're at, and that's why I think the better days are still ahead. I think we're still only growing as a team this year. A lot of guys obviously away with the World Cup, and they're slowly being reintegrated into the squad. We've built depth in their absence, so there's promising signs, and we're very excited about what's down the road.
Another good win for the Warriors. That, folks, is all your sport tonight. See you again tomorrow.
All right, thanks very much, Rahman. OK, let's check in now with Sean for the weather forecast.
A spell of sea air will be followed by a strong chance of you have to try these. TUI sponsors STV Weather.
So that cold air is really with us now, especially Saturday. You'd really notice it. Lovely crisp weather, but very cold. Some spots 1-2 degrees Celsius by night, -4, -5, and something we're going to have to get used to, some extremely low temperatures by night at times this week. Cold night to come tonight. Temperatures widely down to about -1, -2. Expect south and east Ayrshire, parts of Stirlingshire, down to lows of -5. So a cold, frosty start to tomorrow. But even though it is going to be a cold week, for many of us here, central and western parts, are going to be a lot of crisp, dry and sunny weather. Apart from a few scattered showers, mainly around the likes of Oban, Mull, Col and Tiree during tomorrow. Temperatures about 4 or 5 degrees Celsius. Those temperatures staying roughly around those sort of daytime values through most of the week, but it's the overnight temperatures that will be a bit of a shocker at times. Wednesday, I'm expecting highs about 2-3 degrees Celsius for many of us, but look at that. Lots of lovely crisp and sunny weather for us. Wintry showers in the north and the northeast. It could get some sleet and snow in eastern parts on Thursday, something to bear in mind if you're thinking of heading over to parts of Fife and around Aberdeenshire, Angus, and also towards the Edinburgh area as well. For us though, Fort William, look at that, lovely sunshine through most of the week, but look at those overnight temperatures. In the centre of Glasgow, I'm expecting overnight lows of around -3, -4 through most of this week. That does mean if you're in the likes of Airdrie, Motherwell, Hamilton, Paisley, it could be even lower, so a very chilly week ahead.
TUI sponsors STV Weather.
And that is all from us this evening. We're back again tomorrow at 6 though.
I'll be back with Scotland Tonight, 5 to 11. Late, but worth it, believe me. Join me then. Good night.
Good night.